Welcome back to New Week, and in case you are joining us now, the discussion we are about to finalize on is on the Kibra quest, who should replace. We don't have an opinion of who should really replace Ken Okoth, but rather what ideas this contest should be based on, and whether this is a political battle between the two fronts that have equally fronted their members. Remember, you can be part of this discussion. Tweet us at TV47KE. The hashtag to use is TV47 Newweek. Let's finalize on this, gentlemen. Before we went for a break, I made mention of the land row. Land is heavily contested as well in Kibra. On Friday, June the 2nd, the Kenyan government issued a community land title to the Nubian Community Trust for 228 acres of land in Kibra and the neighborhood. Kenya's decision to acknowledge the land rights of the country's Nubian minority has been internationally hailed, but locally we have equally seen the Nubian community and others demanding that what they term as ancestral land has not been equally allocated to them. Is this an idea that may possibly shape the contest as well?
I mean, this contest is going to be shaped by everything and nothing in particular.
Everything and nothing?
Yes.
That seems -1 + 1, isn't it?
Yes, which comes to 0 + 1 - 1 is still 0. So what I'm saying is that we are going to have so many conversations which then ordinarily people will not be having them. During this period, people are going to have very uncomfortable conversations, which after we get done, after the elections are done, that will be the end of it until the 2022.
And what are some of these uncomfortable conversations?
The uncomfortable conversations include, but not limited to, the land issue, the idea of who knows Kibra better than who, the idea of who's a godfather who has been imported and such, and who doesn't know about Kibra, who uses Google Maps. These are conversations that are going to be had during this period. Where the challenge comes in, Abu, is that once we are done with the elections, those conversations will end. We will again wait for 2022, and then we start those conversations again. If indeed we are planning to sort the land issue in Kibra, it needs to be sorted once and for all. We don't have to wait and start bringing it up during some election period. Wait until the election period is over, put it to rest. When we are approaching another election, again we start the conversation.
And if the people are getting a chance to choose a leader whom they want, shouldn't this be a factor to be considered?
Well, I think this is a serious factor to be considered, but unfortunately this is not the first time we are having this debate in Kenya. It is so much arose during even the 2007-2008 post-election violence, where the land issue in Kibra came up, because some people were saying now this is our land, and some people are kicking out some people saying this is not their land. So I think these are conversations, as I said, which come up during the elections, and especially when there's some political interest to play. So I think the leader who should come in is somebody that issue should be a measure for the person, because this is an issue which should be settled once and for all, at least for people to know where I stand. Is it a land which I'm here for some short time, then I be kicked out, or is it something which I can even be able to develop or even sell or transfer? So it's a measure, and it's something which should be so much considered by the citizens on the manifesto of the candidate will come in.
And if the issues that we have talked about and off for the last 1 hour are genuine issues that affect the people of Kibra, why does it seemingly then not be the center of their decision of who they choose?
They won't. I mean, if institutional memory serves you right, you'll realize that we live in a country where we choose leaders using every criteria, but we exclude merit. We use all other criteria. How much money do you have? How many girlfriends do you have? How many wives do you have? Who's your political godfather? Who's your political godmother? Which party are you in? I mean, who raised your hand during the weekend? Where did you dance? Which kibanda did you eat? Which matatu did you take? But when we get to the point of now subjecting the candidates to merit, our brains stop working.
And if these leaders are coming to office courtesy of a democratic space, however undemocratic or democratic it can be, should the blame not be on the people?
We don't live in a democratic society. We live in a guided democratic society. So our democracy is usually guided.
Negotiated.
I mean, it's not even negotiated. And that is why Kaberia will tell you here, I know you'll not want to agree. Ask him why he's a member of Jubilee Party. I mean,
why?
You will answer. And then ask somebody else, some Onyango from somewhere, why is a member of ODM? Ask some Kisii somewhere, why is a member of the Ford people? Ask somebody from the coast, why is something? So our democracy is normally guided. So that at the end of the day, when we think we have democracy, we have our guiders who are celebrating that indeed, at the end of the day, what they wanted has come to fruition.
And can this democracy be guided by ideas?
Which ideas?
I mean, the ideas we talked of?
I mean, I've told you, we make decisions on everything except merit.
Kaberia?
Well, I think in Kenya, the democracy, it's not guided by ideas because we've seen it's a game of majority. Who has the numbers and who will be able to bring the crowd and the masses and the resources. So the matter of idea, it's not something which, if you look even at the party manifesto, very few people bother to read what is exactly what party is fronting in terms of manifesto. They look at who is this person, who is the party leader for this party, where does he come from? So the issue of idea in Kenyan mentality, it's something which is so much left for a few elites who does not make really a big count when it comes to who takes the leadership.
And as we put the Kibra Quest discussion to its rest, deservingly for the last 45 minutes that we talked about it, whoever wins, if party A, party B, candidate X, candidate Y wins, should it be signaling at any political direction for 2022?
I really don't know how exactly to answer this, but it will be a signal, but not a big signal as maybe we may want to perceive it. This is the reason. When you look at Kibra itself, we have heard history of Kibra on who has been leading the Kibra in terms of the party numbers and the leading party. But now this is not enough arithmetic to say that if ODMs take it, it's likely to take 2022. Or if Jubilee takes it, this is the same thing which is likely to happen in 2022. But I think what the message which should be signaling towards the 2022 is the relevance of some politicians. As much as we have some people who have not had in terms of the party having numbers like the Fund people or Sit Fund Kenya for Wetangula, I even don't know. At least now this is the time they have to show their might.
The relevance, you mean those who are vying for this position or even others?
Yeah, those who are vying and the parties which are sponsoring them, because we've seen the party leaders coming in strong force. Like Moses Wetangula, we have never had him in Nairobi. This is the time he's roaring with the loudest voice.
But I've not had him roaring.
Fair enough. Let's continue with another discussion on the Mau evictions, the politics of Mau. The CS is set to appear before the parliament this week. This seemingly also will take center stage in this week. And on Newweek, we tend to look at some of the stories that will be set in the agenda in as far as the new week itself is concerned. Let me ask you, gentlemen, is there a genuine environmental concern to evict people from Mau?
I mean, it is very genuine. And for the last few years, we have seen a change in the weather patterns. And one of the reasons that has been attributed to this is that we have seen we're doing away with our forest covers, our wetlands, we are destroying them, and there is a genuine concern. Every year, in and out, we are staring at drought. People are dying because of famine. There's no food. And it is genuine that indeed there are people in Mau who are not supposed to be there. Those are facts that you cannot be able to dispute. You have even seen some people who have independently decided to move out of the Mau. But then, where we lose it, Abu, is...
Before we even lose it then, before we even lose and you continue, if there is a genuine concern in your own view, why is it taking years to resolve this?
It is because of political capitalism. Those people in Mau have been grouped as a voting bloc for particular individuals. So when we think that we are going to move them out, the people who use them as political capitalism when it comes to elections, they'll be asking themselves, okay, so once we remove those people, let's say it's 50,000, those are 50,000 votes that I'm going to lose. What happens to me in the next election? And that is where we lose it. We lose it the moment we view people as political capital, not something else. I mean, this issue of Mau did not start yesterday. This is an issue that we have lived every year in out. We start the steps of evicting them. Depending on which political divide you are, you bring in and say, no, they are not going to move. This is wrong. We start involving our political leaders, and then at the end of the day, we put it to rest. Wait until when we will be near the 2022 elections, this issue is going to come up again. And depending on which side you are, you will either support it or oppose it.
Kaberia, in the first phase of the evictions in July 2018, about 7,700 people were forced out of the forest land, which saw 12,000 acres of land reclaimed. I mean, when we hear of evictions, many a times it is one complex or not, but seemingly Mau is a complicated complex, is it?
Yes, yes. I think one of the things about to understand clearly about the Mau is that there's a real concern on environmental conservation, and also there's politics playing around that. We should understand that there's a cut line, and those people within the cut line are not being evicted. The people who are being evicted are people who have now encroached the forest cover. But now looking at that, we've been having a lot of politics around because some politicians deliberately knew this thing from the word go, but did not want to bring the truth because there's some interest, as Areba put it.
And some politicians, in your own view, these are politicians from that region?
Yes, because we have two conflicting regions. We have also the man, the other region, whereby these are the people from the region. And also these people are beneficiaries of the place in terms of land. We saw from even the former land commissioner who was saying, for me, yes, I gave out some huge tracts of land even to some of those politicians, and I also benefited from that. So it means there is also something more than the political issue. There is even something more on with the resources. Because somebody is owning huge tracts of land, they have done the cultivation and the development and that. So it's always an emotive issue when it comes to evicting those people.
On the environmental conservation, in 2010, Kenya signed an accord meant to manage the resources and the sources of River Nile. The Nile gets its water from Lake Victoria, which in return is fed by other rivers, partly rivers that sprout from the Mau complex. Yeah. Is it a case that people are being evicted at the expense of Nile in Egypt?
Well, I don't think it's the issue of Nile only because when you look, the Mau forest is something which transfers around 7 counties. And it's extensive, and it's 12 rivers which comes from Mau. So when you talk about the issue of River Nile, the beneficiary is not just River Nile. We also have the local communities who use the water. Those people are relying on agriculture. We have pastoralists. So I think it's a whole concern, but also we cannot say that we are ruling out the issue of River Nile, but we also need to look at the local context here in Kenya. We have a lot of things to benefit from when the Mau forest, the forest cover, and even the water towers as is concerned.
Fair enough. And that agreement, which is the Cooperative Framework Agreement, CFA, was signed by the then water minister, who was Charity Ngilu, who is the governor now. Is it a case of camouflaging on these positions and not really solving what this problem is?
Well, I think there is some deliberate move for not to do some things or to do some things the way they are being done right now. One, and I'll talk of the political interest. You saw Charity Ngilu was the Minister of Water by that time, but currently Charity Ngilu is the Governor of Kitui. So people may say that my interest, I don't have any interest in that. As much as I have that privileged information when I signed the MOU, it's for the first time I'm hearing this, but not from Ngilu, but from you. So there are so many other citizens who are really not aware of such a thing. So if you want to believe that if leaders, they have the goodwill and they believe in things which they really put in front, it's also the high time for them to bring in the eyes of the public so that people don't see this thing in one lens. They see at least in 3 dimensions that we have some other benefits to accrue from this, and also we have an agreement whereby for us to protect this, there is also this other benefit in exchange.
Let me bring Areba to the discussion. The efforts to conserve the sources of River Nile was started way back. In fact, this agreement that I alluded to, the negotiations started 10 years before 2010,
Yes.
which was 2000. We are nearly 20 years after that. Why is it taking so long?
It is taking too long because we don't have the genuine interest of trying to conserve the environment. It's just as simple as black and white. If indeed we had the goodwill and the genuine concern to conserve the Mau forest, I don't think there will be anybody in that forest. In fact, you know, the question I always ask myself is that, how did we get there? We all knew that this is a water tower. Of course, there was land which was allocated to specific ranches. At what point in time then did we increase these allocations and even have title deeds? Which government official is this who knew very well that this land is not supposed to be allocated a title deed, but still went ahead and allocated a title deed? It's like I come tomorrow and say, hey, I have a title for Uru Highway. You guys, you don't need to drive through Uru Highway. I mean, that is crazy.
And for someone who was internally displaced, be it from the 2008 skirmishes or what be and found refuge there. How do you convince such a person that conserving this environment is better than a homestead for them?
I mean, it's very basic and simple. You find somebody has invaded the runway at Wilson Airport and then says, oh, I don't have a home, so let me stay at the runway of Wilson Airport. We know that is catastrophic. You know, let's not justify everything on the basis of human rights. I'm an advocate and I respect human rights. And that is why in moving these people out, I have advocated for two things. Number one, the moving them out needs to be humane. We don't need people to touch houses, kick children around and shoot animals and everything. The moving them out needs to be human. But then as a victim, I don't want to start playing the victim card mentality and saying, I have nowhere else to go. Where did you come from?
They'll be in a position to answer where they came from first. Kaberia, we saw incidents of 15 schools being closed,
yes.
15 of them being public schools, constructed using taxpayers' money,
yes.
if they were public schools.
Yeah.
Why would the national government construct 15 schools in a contested area that it knows later will be a source of a problem as such?
Well, I think it's because we got it wrong from the onset of the whole thing. This is because when they were allocating the land, there were some other corruption things which played aside. Because we have earned the title deeds. These people have been given the title deeds by the government. So that means that's a legal document to show that you really own this land. And it's unfortunate that the government, the minister saying that this is just a paper, a piece of paper to be in the real context. But now looking at this issue of 15 schools, this is not a small number of schools. And now
I'm trying to imagine how big that area is.
Exactly.
15 schools.
Public schools, meaning that even the geographical extension is so big. And now we have teachers who are employed by the Teacher Service Commission. We also have roads which have been built by the government. We also having polling stations in those places. And that means IBC did all the marking and all the mapping up to identify that this place can fit to be a polling station. So my surprise comes now when you are told now this land does not belong to you. It's now a forest cover. That means that from, if you have to quote directly from the former land commissioner, I just can't remember exact name, but he said...
I beg you are referring to Sami Mwaita, who was the former commissioner of land.
Yes, yes. He was saying because he was being interviewed by some popular newspaper a day before yesterday, it was in today's paper, saying that for me, my work was to allocate the land, and I was able to give land to so many people, the beneficiaries and even the politicians.
And on that point, the name is Sami Mwaita, who was the then commissioner of land.
Yeah.
Part of what he said in that interview, and I quote, he said, when he was probed as to why he allocated these pieces of land to the people, he said, and I quote, I have no apologies to make.
Yes.
In your own observation, does he have an apology to make?
A lot of apology to make, but I know one of the things he was acting with the instructions from some masters. Either, I don't want to name them, but some popular ministers by that time, because we know how powerful they were, maybe even from the presidency. So for him, he was able maybe to act under instructions. And even the method which he used, the structures which they used to allocate land was something which is not a legal system, because they were awarding the cronies. Himself, he said he owned tracts of land in the area.
He allocated himself.
He allocated
that is the word
himself,
he used.
yes, huge tracts of land. So means we got it wrong from the onset. It's not even about the government building the schools. It's that the corruption which was there is what is eating now as back.
Agreeably, if we got it wrong from the onset,
Yes.
is it too late to right the wrongs?
Well, I think where we've reached now, I can say it's too late because already the consequence is being felt by the common mwananchi. There is an innocent person who came all the way from other place, came and bought land and was given the documents. But now the government has really stood on its ground that we really need to evict you, and they have given notices, and we have seen police presence at the place. So I really don't know what remedy can be done now, because even if they are given some extension for 2 or 3 months, eventually that time will elapse and they'll be kicked out. So this is something I can say it's now beyond remedy.
Areba, on the same point, there's the former commissioner of lands who publicly 3 days ago said in relation to this that he has no apologies to make. Does he have any apology to make?
Of course, with the kind of mediocrity that and the way we celebrate it in this country, he does not have an apology to give.
Should he have any apology?
He should be remorseful, for crying out loud. You cannot just move around and perform your duties in the way you are not supposed to perform them, then you come out and say you don't have an apology to give. That is why I said the way we manage this country as if we don't have other people who will come in the future. If indeed he knew that this is public land or this is forest cover, and of course there was genuine people who are supposed to be allocated part of it, why then the ministry go on an allocation spree, giving each and every person who wanted, or even the politicians? I mean, this is something that the land question is a very emotive question that has been within us for a long time. And I hope that with time, the National Land Commission, which we hoped will sort out this mess, also went down into the same drain. We see its chair, Professor Swazuri, battling court cases around. So then that shows you how much the land question in this country is of emotive nature. And we have the Ndungu report that is yet to be implemented.
Yes.
Kabire, let me come to you. What kind of a political fodder does anyone, for God's sake, gain from people being evicted?
Well, let me answer you this in two perspectives. One, we have seen press conference from leaders from the Ma region, and led by Ledama or Lekina. These are the people who are really so much supporting the eviction. And then we have seen other crop of leaders from now the area who are really against this. And now they are trying...
from the Rift.
From the Rift. And actually one of the senators was producing evidence that the CS for environment is a beneficiary of the Mau land. And was trying, that's, I think it's, what's the name of the senator for Kericho?
Cheriot.
Yes, Cheriot. So that means that there is a lot of politics and a lot of interest to play.
Which begs the question I'm asking, what kind of political fodder, political mileage does one gain from evicting people, rendering people?
I mean, Abu...
Let me answer the question first.
It's because you know what I'm likely to say.
No, let him answer so that I know what you will say.
Well, I will answer you by reminding you in that sometime, I think it's 2007 when Raila was trying to bring the issue of Mau. And you see now what happened, the type of backlash he was receiving, and this almost cost is now the voting bloc. So there is a lot on when it comes to numbers. These people, there's somebody who wants now to stand with the people, and the other people want to stand with the environment. So those people want to stand with the people. Sometimes they are not showing the genuine concern of the environment, that as much as we want to stand with you, this land was illegally acquired or this, and we have the environmental aspect to protect. And those who also want to stand with the environment conservation, they don't want to look at the people aspect, all because of various political interest and mileage that you get maybe by pleasing your community or standing by what your kinsmen believe in.
Fair enough. Areba, as you react to that question, we had donors who wanted to fund the eviction and the relocation of the people to the tune of 18 billion shillings. That did not happen. Why is it difficult to solve this Mau crisis once and for all? I know you're not in authority, but in your own view.
If I was the president today, I would board a military helicopter and land in Mau and oversee the exercise myself. Because...
The eviction exercise, you mean?
The relocation exercise. It depends on which term you want to use. It's because nobody disagrees to the fact that people have taken over the Mau and they were not supposed to. Look at all those political commentators and look at all these political leaders. Everybody, what is saying, oh, it's going to be inhumane, where are these people going to go? Let's wait a bit. But in essence, what they are agreeing is that this is forest land and it needs to be conserved. I mean, that is the baseline. If we then operate from that baseline, you had my friend, Colonel Cyrus Oguna, the government spokesperson, saying that the conservation of Mau cannot be stopped. We need to operate with that basis. Once we start operating from that basis alone, then now we can ask ourselves about the modalities of ensuring human rights are taken care of, where are they going, where are these children going, where are these schools being reallocated. Once then we do about that process, then it will be okay. The reason why we are having challenges is because we are not thinking through the entire process. We just wake up one day as government and say, let's do it. Then we have one or two noises, politicians make noises, then we abandon it. And then go back to the drawing board, re-strategize. Parliament summons the CS, goes to Mombasa for a retreat, makes a report, doesn't table it, and the circus continues.
And at the heart of this pull and push, this chest-thumping, political chest-thumping that we have seen are people to the tune of thousands of them.
I think the issue of the chest thumping has been there because, as I said, we have had a situation whereby we've seen some people who want to take a lot of mileage and want to come up through the results of the Mau and the masses. So this is not something which we can say we are really writing it off, but it's something which is playing in stage, and this is especially coming now from the Mau community, and where we have seen various leaders, even from the level of MCA to senator to governor, all coming up in unison, which we've never seen before, in support of that, the issue of eviction.
And given that the divides that we have seen based on communities, some from the Rift, others from the Marland, should this be an alarm, if not resolved before 2022, that it may be the genesis of chaos?
Yes, and I think one of the things which president should do is really to look for a neutral position, because people are perceiving that Keria Kotobiko, being from the Mau community, is taking a decision which is so much sided on what the community is pushing. So this is something which, if not taken care of right now from the executive order, the president, this is something which will bring a lot of antagonism and a lot of conflict between the community. And even when people will be being even resettled, because these people have lived together in Mau Forest. But now when they are trying to be divided along the community line themselves, they will have a lot of divisions, and this will even be able to bring more challenges on the issue of resettlement.
Areba, over the years we have seen during elections time is when the Mau quest, the Mau standoff comes to the forelight. But this seemingly has come way too early, hasn't it?
No, I mean, we're politic every day. So we are just preparing.
But unlike many other electioneering periods when it was coming to the final races,
we are just hitting up the drums before we start the music. Because we have music all the time in this country. And music, I mean election music. So I hope that then, before we get to 2021, when now emotions will have been properly whipped, after we are done with all the referendums, Punguza Mzigo, Blue Band and whatever, we can have this conversation.
The Building Bridges initiative.
We can
Is
have
that the Blue Band you are referring to? Just
we can have this conversation genuinely, so that then, you know, we need to move on as a country. We cannot have a conversation about the Mau for 30 years. I mean, a child who was born, by the time these conversations were being had, will be a voter, will probably pass on, and he will leave the issues pending.
And so, Areba, if 20 plus years we are still having this discussion, does it first signal how big of a problem this is, or is it a matter of postponing the same problem?
It is not a big problem, trust you me. It's just that we keep on looking at which side of our bread is buttered, which side of our bread has the Blue Band initiative. What I mean is that, you know, before the last elections, we had politicians who were for the eviction from Mau. Now they're on the other side. What exactly changed? What's that changed? And there are some guys right now who are supporting the eviction. Come to 2027 or 2032, they'll be opposing. If we could not have settled, what exactly changes?
Well, I see it's a big problem, but it's a big problem when we don't want to look at it outside politics. This is because everything which is playing in Mau, as I said, we have two aspects, the environmental and the political aspect. So if we really want to look at what is right, not on who is having this, who is the one fronting the idea, we'll be able to have a solution to this. Whether it is the environmental issue, and it's genuinely environmental, without some political issues, then that's now should be the solution.
And is there more emphasis, more focus on the politics of Mau, the emotions whipping, than really solving the problems of the people?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we are seeing, because we are hearing the voice of politicians, actually more than even the voice of environmentalists, because there's a lot of things to protect. And this, we are also seeing it's like communities, two tribes or two communities trying to bring the whole picture. So I think now that's where we miss the picture, because the politics plays the overall game, that we miss the aspect, the important aspect of the water tower, the forest cover, the 12 rivers, the transversing around the 7 counties. We lose the big picture.
I want us to move from Mau to South Africa and the latest xenophobic attacks that we have seen there. But before we do that, in your own ideal world, how would this be solved?
The Mau?
Yes.
Two issues. One, there are people who, by an error on the government aspect, who have titles. They need to understand that you cannot hold a title for this property. That is an illegal and a fraudulent acquisition. Proceed on and gazette those title deeds and revoke them. It happens every day, revocation of titles by the National Land Commission. After that, now supervise people moving out of the forest. If there are those who genuinely were allocated by the government, and it is minuted down that these people, because of one or two reasons, they were given this land, then now we can talk about relocation, and probably trying to see about compensation. And one of the things I'm sure is that we have a number of development partners and countries of goodwill which are ready to support this exercise. It's only that from our end, we are not showing, number one, the goodwill and the ability to do it.
Kaberia, in your ideal world as well, how should the Mau crisis be solved?
I think one thing which should happen, and it should happen as soon as yesterday, is now the prosecution of those people who are in charge of the whole process, like this former land commissioner and anyone who was involved. First of all, let's have the justice for these people. Secondly, those people who are in forest cover, let them now be removed in a humane way, and if possible, the government should try and be able to resettle them in a way that at least they are given some form of small compensation for them to go. Some people have been born there. They don't know anywhere else apart from home.
Where did their fathers come from?
They don't have, maybe they may not even be having those fathers.
They should trace those fathers.
Fair enough. And on that point, just a reminder that our reporter Joash Onsare is working on a documentary on the Mau evictions, Purukushani Mau, that will be on your screen. The promo airing today, then the story will be airing tomorrow here on TV47. It's time for us to take a short break here on Newweek. We'll be back now from Mau to South Africa and the latest xenophobic attacks that we have seen. Don't go too far. We'll be back after this break.
Twende sasa.
Nipe countdown. 2, 1. Nakuletea matangazo moja kwa moja kutoka kongamano la 6 la ugatuzi hapa Kirinyaga County.
Hapa ni mjini Meru.
Tupo katika eneo la Wetevye kaunti ya Kiambu.
Hivi leo tuko Nairobi Cinema.
Hapa ni Kina, ukipenda Kinango.
Usiwache hiyo timu ipotee.
Kama huyu amekataa, tafuta mwingine, maisha isonge mbele.
Mabadiliko haya yangali yanazua msuke baina ya washikadau.
Baadhi ya changamoto hizo zilikuwa ni kama vile ukosefu wa maarifa.
Wameweza kupeperusha bendera ya Kenya.
Tutaingia kwenye mapumziko kidogo.
Chavi!
Na hii, mpenzi mtazamaji, ndiyo
TV47
Macho na sauti yetu.
All right, welcome back to Newweek. From Mau, let's move south of the continent to the South African country, where the latest wave of hate and xenophobic attacks have been in the limelight as well. Let's make sense of what that has as a consequences on the African continent. Areba, let me start with you. Is it a case of the sons and daughters of Africa at the throat of each other?
It's a very sad state. Remember, sometimes back we had other African countries standing for South Africa, and during the apartheid region, and some of the leaders during that time, the likes of Mbeki and the likes of Ramaphosa, were fleeing to other countries. You know, now it looks so helpless and so bad that you wonder what happened now. I mean, we normally say that Africa is ours and Africa issues are our issues. Why can't we as brothers sit down and solve our issues? Not to really sound insensitive, it's sad that these attacks are perpetuated towards fellow Africans. Not to really sound bad on air, but then it's quite strange that we can look at other people from other continents and embrace them, but when it comes to our own people, we want to kill them. I mean, it's really sad, and you have seen the retaliatory attacks from other countries. If then South Africa does not put its house in order, if the AU does not lead that process, then I think every country is going to say, hey, we don't want anything to do with
We'll come to
South
the role
Africans.
of the AU in that. This is not the first time foreigners are attacked in South Africa. This is many among the waves of xenophobic attacks that we have seen. In the wildest of dreams, is there a reason as to why people of other countries should be attacked?
Well, I think that's very unfortunate, and it's something which should not be even a discussion, because you can't be a foreigner in Africa if you're an African, because there's so much that we share in common, from even the colonization and even the economy issues, that you should not feel like you're an alien when you visit the other country. And you have seen that these South Africans, it does not mean that all of them are in South Africa. They're also in other states doing even business, and some of the biggest franchise even here in the country and in other countries are South Africans, from even the big supermarket, the retail business and all that. So this is something which is very uncalled for, and it's something which is very unfortunate, and this is something which should be stopped with immediate force and all what it takes to stop that and bring sanity.
At the heart of these attacks were concerns over the country's economy.
Yes.
That the question of unemployment being raised by the locals there.
Yes.
If at all there is a genuine concern that people are unemployed in South Africa, should that anger be meted on people of other countries?
Well, I think one of the things, there's a joke which I read that an illiterate person from South Africa will claim that a doctor from other countries is taking over their jobs. Because the jobs, I want to believe that they are given on the basis of merit. And there are so many economical issues in South Africa, which really is able to attract even people from other countries. But now, looking at the history of South Africa, it's true the rate of crime is so high, also the rate of unemployment is so high, but you cannot solve this problem by kicking out the foreigners, because these people are setting up businesses which are hence creating employment. These are the people who are bringing expertise which you do not have, and in the other hand bringing up the economy. So I don't think it's a solution for the unemployment.
Areba, if in the eyes of the locals there it is that the foreigners have come to capture our economy, should governments moderate of the percentages foreigners should have a say on?
We have countries in the Gulf where the foreigners are more than the people who are there. I have a friend who's a diplomat, and he always tells me that when you walk into his country, you will think that you're in Nairobi, you will think that you're in Tanzania, you will think that you're in Uganda. But then they have used the numbers that are getting there positively. They have used that numbers for skilled labor, unskilled labor, and even consumers themselves. So South Africa needs to relook at the way it's handling the issue of numbers visiting their country. This is a conversation we have even had in Kenya. You have heard of some of Chinese and Japanese and other people who we are being told are selling roasted maize and whatever on the streets.
In Gikomba market.
In Gikomba market. But then, as a country, we are not that primitive to move out and start chasing them like rats on the highway. We have better ways of dealing with them. The South Africans can use those African numbers to their advantages. You know what you forget always is, when you are chasing somebody from your country, remember that there are other people who are also in other people's countries.
And on that point, for someone who thinks as though the presence of Areba in South Africa means he has taken my job. How do you convince such a person?
I was in Pretoria for quite some time for university, at the University of Pretoria. And I will see the undertones. Even, you know, Pretoria is predominantly a white state. And you will see the undertones even from the South Africans themselves, the white South Africans, to people who are perceived as black South Africans. I'll give you an example. One time we walked into a mall with one of my friends to look for phones and watches. And we will see how the white owners looked at us and wondering, what are these people doing here? So the undertones are there. The issue is, how do they deal with those challenges? And then secondly, how do they use those numbers to their advantage? If now we get to the point of saying, kila mtu arudi kwao, trust you me, even South Africa will suffer.
And if we on this bench agree that xenophobia is wrong, because of the human aspect to it, that you shouldn't hate people from other countries, neither chase them away if they are there legally and on documents that are approved by the law there. We have seen retaliations from some African countries.
Yes.
If xenophobia is wrong, two wrongs don't make a right, is it?
Yes.
Retaliating against it. Does it correct anything?
It does not correct anything, but you see sometimes we've seen also retaliatory attacks in Kenya, whereby especially the cattle community, whereby you take our animals, then we also come and revenge in the other side. I think one of the reason why people do the retaliation is the pain, the pinch they feel of the pain when they see what's happened to their people and the level of hospitality which they're giving on the other side. I'm not trying to justify the retaliation, and it's something which I'll never do. But looking at this is a consequence of what is happening in South Africa. So as much as maybe we want the citizens to become, the whole solution should come from South Africa itself, because this is something which is trickling down from South Africa to other countries. And we've seen them even closing the businesses, like those big businesses in the country. This is a loss to the economy. It's loss of tax, loss of employment. So they should look at the big picture, and also the countries, the citizens who are retaliating. This is the high time they stop and look for a diplomatic way of even now be able to solve this through the foreign affairs, whatever channels which they have.
Areba, if the body, the continental body, is the African unity, will it not be easy to ask where the unity is?
I mean, if you look at the history of the Organization of African Union, then as it was, and now the
OAU before
the AU,
yes,
it was meant to spur cohesion, which then at the end of the day will spur development and integration. But down the line, the reason why then the OAU had to die a natural death is because there was a feeling that the countries were not moving in the same direction in terms of their interest and safeguarding what the purpose was as to why the OAU was formed. Down the line, we have the African Union, which is headquartered in Addis Ababa. It then needs to move in, number one, and try to explain to its member countries on the need for integration and the need for tolerance. Trust you me, I'm not always the happiest person with some of our neighbors, but then I have to tolerate them. We know some of those neighbors who we describe as living 10 of them in a bedsitter somewhere on Thika Road. We are not very happy to accommodate them. But then do we have a choice? The reason why we don't have a choice is because we have our countrymen and our relatives also in that country trying to do something for a living. So then the African Union needs to move with speed and explain to its members the importance of tolerance. Otherwise, all these other things that we aspire to do by, I don't know, 2030, the visions that we have as the African Union, we won't be able to achieve them. If we cannot live in tolerance as brothers and sisters in different countries, then all this is just going to be an amorphous body that is that is trying to do a lot and trying to do a lot, but then when it comes to the basics of why it was formed and what it needs to do, it's not going to achieve.
Fair enough, Kaberi. I'm not coming to the defense of anyone who is doing a wrong, but some justifications that I read, be it online or otherwise, is that if people are coming to take our jobs and our government is creating a favorable environment for them and not us, you don't expect us to sit back without reacting.
Well, I think when the government is not maybe taking action to them,
yes.
One of the things which I read are very unfortunate statement from, I think, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, who in terms was giving a contradicting information on that, like trying to give like a justification for the xenophobia, but in a coded language. So one of the things which I'm very pretty sure is that the jobs for South Africans, not that the foreigners are taking the jobs for South Africa. For heaven's sake, South Africa is so much developed even economically in terms of infrastructure and on so many things. They need expertise, they need so many people, and it's a place whereby it's a dream place for most of even the Africans to go and work, to go and do business and that. And we have seen the ripple effect whereby they're also setting up the businesses in other places, and people are very accommodating. We actually love shopping in their supermarkets and all that.
But isn't it, and I'm not justifying anything on this show, isn't it the human instinct that when others are doing well in your own country, there's that feeling of, why is the government letting us aside?
Well, it's a human feeling, but now they should really, for them to understand it, the government also should take some time and also a lot of sensitization to inform them that as much as we are claiming of this, there are other things which we are doing for you. And these people are not entirely coming and taking over your jobs. There are other people who are of our country who are also taking over their jobs in other countries. So I think it's something which the government can be able to solve by just a matter of informing the citizens, or even be able to engage them in other activities.
Fair enough. Where does this leave the question of the free trade area, the continental free trade area that was touted as though it was going to create borderless countries with less tariffs on goods, less taxes on the borders?
I mean, also to take you back is that the issue in South Africa is not very unique to. We have seen traces of such conflict within our East African community. And we have seen some countries which are not receptive to other countries. We have seen countries which feel threatened by the influx of citizens of the other country and the traders. But then the point is that let's not be selfish and look at our personal interest when we are looking at integration. Integration has its advantages and also disadvantages. When we are integrating and creating common markets and free trade areas, can you look at what you tend to gain from that opportunity rather than looking at what you tend to lose? You know, where we lose it is we think that we are losing everything when we integrate. I mean, if right now we were to use a common passport and a common document going through Africa, I'll be one of the most happiest person. I don't have, I mean, there are some countries whenever I travel to, I have to apply a visa 2 weeks earlier on, pay $100, check my blood group, check how many hens I have in the village, know who's my village elder. I mean, that is the kind of nonsense that we are trying to advocate against. And that is what I'm saying. As long as we consider that we are brothers and sisters and we are only separated by the borders, let's look at what any circumstance, let's look at what opportunities any circumstance bring. Let's not focus on the threats.
If we don't focus on the threat, then objectively judging it, where does this leave the Africa Trade Union? Is it an idea dead on arrival, if at all this level of protectionism is rising?
Well, to answer you that, I think one of the reasons why it has not been successful, the trade area, is because of the variance, the disparities with the economy. We've seen some countries which are more of producers than consumers, and others which are consumer economy, meaning that we buy a lot from you, and then in exchange you are not buying anything from us. And this is even the conversation which was there between Kenya and Uganda at some point on the egg and the milk products. So if now a country feels that we are not getting benefit of this, definitely there will be some disagreement, there will be some broken relationship.
And before we continue with that discussion, I'm reminded that we need to cross over to the Kenyatta National Hospital now, where the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Domestic Hotels, Education Institution, Hospitals and Allied Workers, Albert Njero, is addressing the media. Let's cross over there and listen in.
Unaachilia sisi kama sisi wafanyikazi wa Kenyatta National Hospital. Unatudhurumu sisi wenyewe. Tunadai haki yetu. Kwa hivyo, mandugu na mandanda, mandugu na mandanda, haki yetu, haki yetu, haki, haki yetu, haki, haki yetu, haki yetu. Mandugu na mandanda, haki yetu ya kutoka 22 September ni haki yetu mpaka wa siku ya leo. Na kuna watu wanasema wajui wako A ama B.
Ama hell.
Ama hell ama heaven. Siku ya leo watatuambia wako wapi. Watajua juu. Kwa hivyo tunaendelea kusimama imara.
Yes.
Na tuko pamoja. Konamu yuko hapa.
Hayuko hapa.
Dakika moja kuna simu nasikia inalia nataka kuchukua.
Well, those are live pictures coming to us from Kenyatta National Hospital. The row continues this morning. The strike started midnight last night. Our reporter Tony Murigi is on that bit and will be updating us of the latest from that end. My 5 minutes to end the show continues as my director signals to me. Gentlemen, as we conclude this discussion, there are those who, to the extremes, argue that if there is hate in South Africa, and this is not the first time it's come into the public limelight, isolate them. Is that a radical idea to impose?
You can only isolate once they decide to not agree to any ceasefire. Because the moment we decide to isolate them, they will also respond by saying, this is just a portion of South African regions where we are having xenophobic attacks. Huh? We have places where also South Africans have invested. If we now start kicking each other out, there is going to be a ripple effect. And once that ripple effect comes, the people who are going to suffer are the common citizens. Mm-hmm. The citizens who consume South African products, the citizens on the other side who consume Kenyan, Ugandan, Tanzanian, Nigerian products. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think that the best way to try is use the available channels to try and deal with these challenges. Once they reach then that we cannot be able to solve, and the South Africans themselves plus their government or plus their legitimate constitutional officers refuse to heed to the voice of saying, hey, let's live as brothers and sisters, then now we can start thinking of isolating them. This is too early to think of isolating them.
Kabere, let me ask you more of a tactical question. The global wave of Trumpism, my country first, America first, the far right in Europe, and is that having an effect in as far as people being hesitant to accept others in Africa is concerned?
Well, I agree with you. There is some level of people having that mentality whereby they have the selfish interest when it comes to their country.
And is the rise of that selfish interest in Europe, far-fetched countries, having an effect in Africa as well?
Yes, definitely it's having effect. And now this is, South Africa is just one of the examples, and we have seen it so much because it has been magnified by the xenophobia, but we have seen also some other incidences whereby we have some economic responses in terms of all that, the rising of the self-interest of the country. So I think what thing, maybe to add on what Areba said, is the high time the African Union themselves, they are able to give conditions even to Cyril Ramaphosa and the South Africa government that if you are not able to solve this thing in an amicable way in this given time, then these are the conditions and the ultimatums which you are giving. But if you let South Africa do it on their own, then this is something which will prolong and it will have far-fetched consequences even outside the other countries.
And Areba, understanding that this wave of xenophobic attacks is not new, it's happening once, or if not twice, if not more, annually.
We should not make xenophobic attacks an annual festival.
But that's how similar it is it?
And that is what I'm saying. That is why even South Africa itself, they need to just sit down with themselves and just have an honest conversation. As much as they think that other countries are taking advantage of them, I mean, what are they also putting in those other countries? And as I said, Abu, and I'm not going to relent on this, let them look at this as opportunities and not threats. Then we proceed on as one happy country, one people, we eat together and we drink together.
And to a commoner who thinks the presence of Abu Bakr in South Africa is getting my job, how does that, he or she,
match the skills.
Look as though that is an opportunity to them?
Match the skills. If right now I'm to come out and shout that we have an endometriosis. Do you know who's that?
Fair enough.
I also don't know. If at all it exists. If at all it exists. What I meant is that if I come out and say that now, the person who has been hired is taking my job, I mean, do I match those skills? If right now we were to hire an advocate of a few years who's from another country to do something, I'll come out and say, hey, I'm here. Why didn't you hire me? I'm homegrown. But then when a jobless person comes out and says, this person is taking my job, and yet you are illiterate,
it signals to something. And let me finish that sentence for you. Areba Omoyo and Kaberia, political analysts both. Areba, a lawyer. Many thanks, gentlemen, for making time for us.
Thank you for having us, Abu. Always a pleasure every week.
Thank you so much.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's edition of Newweek. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. On behalf of the entire team that made this production possible, up next is Matukio Nyanjani with Clifford Ndubi. Stay tuned and enjoy the rest of your viewership.